There is no list of things for any job, is what I believe. Any job can be accomplished as long as you love the work, you love the responsibilities that come with it.
Hello everyone, I'm Antika Sen. We, along with our e-magazine Biopatrika, bring exciting stories and life experiences to you that you want to know rather than need to know. Today, I and my co-host Charu Gupta are excited to hear about our guest's journey of transitioning into a non-traditional career in the pharmaceutical industry.
On the forked road at the end of his PhD, he walked the traditional academia route by doing a postdoc before he realized the pharmaceutical industry is his calling. But it wasn't just any call. He was attracted to a lesser known career of an MSL or a medical science liaison. He used his over 7 years of extensive psychiatry, neurology, and immuno-oncology expertise, combined them with a need to make a tangible impact on patients' lives, and voila, an avid biker, Japanese sportsmanship enthusiast, and an MSL at Caris Life Sciences. We are honored to welcome Dr. Karthik Angara.
Hey, hello, Antika and Charu. Very nice to meet you, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you for coming and spending time with us today, Karthik. So my first question to you is actually about your role as a medical science liaison. So is it truly how it sounds? Like, is it a bridge between science and medicine?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that it is indeed a bridge between medicine and science, more so between industry and clinical practice or academia. So as the role itself describes, the role or the title is medical science liaison, or within Caris, they call the MSLs molecular science liaisons. Whatever the name may be, ultimately, you're actually liaising between the industry and the clinic. So that is what the role entails.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's quite people-centric. You have to move between the pharmaceutical industry and obviously the scientists, and then you have to move to the clinic. And you have to explain in two different jargons about what's happening. So what are the other important skills that you think are required to embark on this MSL journey?
Yeah, that's a great question, Charu. The most important skill I think one should have is communication. This is something we've all been trained on when we were in graduate school or in postdoc. We talk about our data in posters or oral presentations, or at journal clubs at our academic institutions. So communicating is the most important aspect. The second most important aspect that is more oftentimes than not underlooked is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, can be very broad, but in a sense, I think you need to be aware of how people are feeling and behaving at that point in time without them having to tell you that they are behaving in a certain way. Just to give you like a brief example, when you're meeting with a physician, I mean, in the pharma industry, they're called key opinion leaders or KOLs or thought leaders. Yep. Or subject matter experts. When you're talking with KOLs, you have to understand if the time slot that they've given you is appropriate, or how valuable it is for them. So in the pre-COVID era, a lot of MSLs actually used to go on and meet with KOLs in person. That was a thing before COVID. And right now it's more hybrid and it's become more virtual. So time slots are dictated by their schedule. So you have a time slot with that physician. But when you're meeting with them in person, you just like pop in and see say a quick hello. So at that point in time, when you had a chat with the KOL, if something came up, if the KOL happens to be a clinician, if a patient comes in, then you would have to know that the physician is busy. He might be looking at his watch repeatedly. Yeah. So that is something you need to keep in mind. So having an awareness of how people behave is really important.
Yeah.
And most of the times, I guess it's all the other skills include your typical presentation skills. These are something you've learned or you're learning as you're getting trained.
Mm. So this is kind of what brings me. So where are we getting this training? Is this something which is innate, or is this something that you learn through certain like MSL preparatory courses? Are those available, or is this something that you learned at, for example, for you at Caris where you work?
Yeah, great question. So more oftentimes than not, a lot of these qualities are actually innate. But having said that, I wouldn't say almost all of them are innate, because everyone has a capacity to do or have these attributes, at least in moderation. It's just that they choose not to do it. So for example, like I'm an introvert, but I can, doesn't mean that I would just shut myself off, right? I can still talk with people, I can connect with people. It's just that I choose to use that in moderation. But for somebody who's an extrovert, maybe they derive their energy from, interactions outside, right? So it's just that, we all have it. I think the training makes them shine, makes them come out. So it just depends on, whether you want to choose a particular career path. You would want to have those skills. So for example, if you like talking with people, communicating science, understanding how science is actually being applied in the clinic, and if the MSL position is for you, you would hone your skills like that. Some people, maybe MSL position is not for them. Maybe they're interested in writing, or maybe they're interested in bench work. So they need to inculcate those qualities accordingly.
Right. So is there, so you say that there's some professional training also available. So if there's, if someone's interested, maybe this training would also kind of provide them an idea of what else is there. As I understand, MSL comes under medical affairs, which includes, as you mentioned, a lot of writing and other sorts of communication and other roles. So this probably would be helpful with them recognizing what they would do.
Absolutely. And there are many resources available. I've utilized many resources. I've looked into the Cheeky Scientists Association. I've looked into Medical Science Liaison Society. So resources are aplenty, and these resources have done a fantastic job at summarizing what the MSL role is, what kind of skills are necessary, how can you inculcate those skills, or, hone your skills per se. And, kind of tailor your language and your attitude towards the pharma industry. As an academia, when you're in academia, you're more focused on, having data, talking about data. But I guess in the pharma industry, it's more so like when to talk and how much to talk. So because in pharma, you're not only like letting the KOLs or external stakeholders know what you have, but also bringing valuable insights from their end. If they're giving you any valuable insights, you're cutting them off by over talking, then you're missing out on those insights. So the key is to talk in moderation, as the MSL role is one where you become the eyes and ears of the company that you represent. So it is important that you keep all your senses active. Information can come in through any corner. You grab it and you bring it back to the company.
So you're like James Bond.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we're the spice of the medical affairs division, or within the pharma industry. Yes, but you can say that.
That's very good advice. I think being aware of the cues around you. So I would like to ask you about some really important issues here. For example, money.
Yeah.
How good is the money in this role? Like, does it pay you enough to cover your bills?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the pay is very decent. But having said that, I'll be really honest with you. It's one of the professions which really pays you a good amount of money. But having said that, I would also know that the amount, I wouldn't say stress, but the amount of workload that comes with it is also going to be immense. So you need to prepare yourself accordingly. Wherever there's big money involved, you know that it comes with a lot of responsibilities. So you'd have many deadlines creeping in. You would have to meet with physicians. You would have to go out and travel. So travel is something like that's very key to the role. And then, we can discuss this probably. I know you guys must have a question about travel. So yeah, so it pays good money. It pays definitely pays more than academia. But having said that, it also comes with responsibilities. Now, having said that, responsibilities are not something we've not handled already in academia. It's just a different kind of responsibility. So I know that I was ready for the position because I was in that mindset of being able to multitask and handle responsibilities.
So talking about responsibilities, were you aware that this job role requires a lot of responsibility? And when you were venturing into it, and if you did, I'm also curious to know what motivated you to make this transition or choose this role over, other traditional industry roles like an R&D scientist?
Yeah. Great question, Ayantika. Great question. So I was actually interested in a couple of roles. One of them was being an R&D scientist. It's just like the nerdy side. It appeals to the nerdy side of me. You just like sit there, you talk to molecules, you talk to cells, you put some weird drugs in it, you expect them to work, they don't work, things like that. What attracted me to the MSL position is that more oftentimes than not, when I was actually doing my experiments, losing myself in hours of writing and optimizing protocols, I always used to wonder, how is this even applicable to humans? Does it actually translate? I'm putting a bunch of chemicals into mice or some other animal model and expecting it to work. Does it actually work in human beings? Right. So that was the fascination. I wanted to always know what is exactly happening in the clinic. How do preclinical studies actually get translated to clinical trials? So an important path was to be a scientist, still understand the pathways involved in the science or how the drug works, and also know what is happening on the other side. The only role that could directly help the scientist in me communicate with clinicians outside was the MSL role. When I researched it, I found out that this was the bridge, as Charu mentioned, the actual bridge that connects the two. So I found this role very enticing, and I started researching about the role. I started talking with other MSLs, senior MSLs, MSL directors at different companies about the position. I read a lot about the responsibilities. On paper, they all look like you can actually do them because most of them you've done it already in some capacity. Right. So I was aware of the responsibilities. I was aware of the fact that it involves a lot of travel. So yes, but having said that, there were a lot of things that are actually not on paper, which you learn as you navigate through that position itself when you get hired.
Right. So do you miss being on the bench?
I do. I would not say I'm not missing that part. I do miss that part. I do miss the fact that research is one critical component in my personal and professional growth. It has brought me to where I am. So I do miss being at the bench.
Do you think it's just like an innate quality that all scientists have, because we've kind of, been bred that way, that exactly. We have to, and we always feel a little guilty moving away. So how do you deal with that guilt?
Yeah. So great question. I mean, you guys have such amazing questions, right? So the way I deal with that guilt is by trying to do justice to my job. Even my job, whatever capacity you're in, you're with pharma, you're with a diagnostics company, you're with a biotech company, whatever you do, become good in the therapeutic area you're in, right? So, analyze the market trends, bring insights, learn how the drug works, talk with physicians, understand how do they actually dose the patients with this drug, what kind of side effects do they expect, things like that. So just for me, it appeals to the nerdy side of me. So I get to know more about what the product is, how is the product being utilized, and how can I make it better.
Yeah.
I see. So just taking a step back, I remember when you talked about how you moved in and you were talking about connecting with more senior MSLs. That made me wonder, what does the professional growth curve look in this role? Like, do you get to like 5 or 10 years from now, will you be branching out to a different direction, or would you just be climbing up the ladder as an MSL?
Yeah, so there are actually many different opportunities within medical affairs. So, I mean, especially when I talk about the MSL role, the way I see it within my company is that once you gain some experience as an MSL on the field, the next step is to become the director of MSLs. And as a director for MSLs, you actually, manage a group of MSLs under you. So this could be like anywhere up to 5 or 6 MSLs in different territories. So, the responsibilities become much bigger. And then as you climb up the ladder, I guess you become less involved on the field, if I may say that, and more involved in the business development aspect of it. So now when you become regional medical directors or medical directors, your idea is not just to go on field and do demos and presentations. I mean, it still is an integral part of being an MSL, but the idea is to form those strategic collaborations which are invaluable for the company, which can take the company into different directions, different ventures. So you become involved in the business development aspect of it rather than directly being involved on the field.
I think that's quite similar to, how each senior position sort of progresses. Like even as a scientist, you start off with like working on the bench, but as a PI, you kind of extend yourself to more administrative tasks.
Exactly.
You look more broadly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you talked about a lot of, these challenges that I would call them in the MSL role, where you have to be emotionally intelligent and you're meeting these KOLs, key opinion leaders. Are you traveling to them only locally, or do you also go to other states and meet them often? Or, are you in charge of a region? Are you supposed to know those hospitals very well? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So before coming into the MSL role, I was aware of travel being a crucial part of the job. So I handle the state of Georgia, the medical affairs, at least for the state of Georgia for my company. And I travel extensively within the state of Georgia. I mean, this travel has reduced, or I would say to some extent because of COVID, and we need to follow protocols because the kind of job we do, we are walking into clinics and meeting with physicians, and these physicians are actually treating patients. So you have to be compliant, you have to be vaccinated, and there are other protocols in place which help you interact with the physicians safely and effectively. But the idea is that, yes, we do travel extensively within the state. I mean, I handle the state of Georgia, as I already mentioned, but if in instances where, because I'm part of the MSL team, if another MSL is not able to be present at a different position, or a different place because he or she has a conflict, then I do have to cover for him or her. Okay. And in that instances, then I might have to travel out of state and things like that. So yes, travel is a significant part and will always be a significant part of the MSL position.
Great, that sounds really cool. I mean, to me, it sounds like a paid vacation. So did you feel the same way before COVID when travel was more frequent?
Yes. So to be honest with you, when I read about the MSL position, when I talked to people, everybody told me that there's going to be a lot of travel. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna see a lot of places. Yeah. But as a matter of fact, the kind of places I've seen, to be honest with you, they have enriched my experience because these are community practices. These are very different from big academic clinics or big NCI designated cancer centers, because this is where a lot of your patients actually go to. It's a different kind of an experience. So yes, it can be a paid vacation based on how you look at it. If there is not much you need to do, you just are there to cover and just like maybe serve as a resource. Yeah, great. You can go around and look at things, but in the end, you have a role carved out for you. So you have to make sure that you are bringing insights, or you're doing your job properly while you're still enjoying. So yeah, it can be both based on how you see it. For me, I've never thought of it as a paid vacation because every time I've gone out, I've had a significant amount of work that I needed to do, and by the time I finished that work, I just wanted to be home.
Yeah, I think it kind of solemnizes, something that is a misconception. If I did know about the MSL role quite a bit beforehand, and I think what you said really kind of plays it, like it kind of just like brings it, sort of grounds it, that you get to travel, but like all of these travels are not really, they're not to happy places. These are not places that we're going to enjoy. It's not a party.
Exactly. I mean, in the end, the travel that you do, again, is not a vacation, right? It's part of your job. Yeah. And which is why you can never separate the things out unless you are going to a place, you finished your job, and the job aspect of the vacation actually ends, and you're extending your travel for 3 or 4 more days, and you're just going around. Right. In which case, again, it's a vacation, but not a paid vacation because the company doesn't pay for you to enjoy.
Well,
Yeah,
someone
so
pays for it.
exactly, someone pays for it. It can be anyone. Let's not get into details of who's going to make those payments, but yeah, somebody pays for it.
Yeah.
As long as it is not the company, it should be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like I hear you saying like there's some days you travel, some days you don't, and looks like there's a lot of variation in your day-to-day work still. But I was wondering if you could describe a typical day in this role, just in general. How would that look?
Yeah. So if I talk about a typical day, maybe I would have a couple of meetings with KOLs that maybe I might have scheduled a couple of months in advance. So if I'm meeting with them right now, maybe I scheduled this meeting in like December or January, like first week of January. Again, getting into their calendars is massively difficult. And I'm not like, I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to downplay or underplay anything. It's just that these people are so busy. You have to chat with them, or if they are directly not available, with their teams way in advance to schedule these meetings. And so whenever these meetings come up, you have to be ready for them. So you get paid big bucks, but again, the preparation for these kind of interactions has to go in. If there was a meeting, or if there was, I'm not sorry, not the meeting, but if there was a presentation that you're supposed to give, then you need to have those slides ready. If those slides have to be approved by, your commercial department or some other medical, or legal departments, you need to submit those slides like way in advance in order to get those. So there are all sorts of like internal and external things you need to accomplish before you are actually ready for that meeting. Again, you need to have an agenda for the meeting. Depending on who is going to be on the meeting, it's going to be a boss or some other departments. You need to make sure you're catering to the needs of that meeting. And most importantly, you are not just putting your agenda out or throwing your agenda out at the KOL, but also trying to understand what the KOL wants out of this meeting. So that is what a couple of my meetings would look like. And then I would have some internal meetings, talking with, commercial team members or some other team members, educating them, providing them education about, a particular molecule or a particular tumor type or a particular biomarker in a tumor, and things like that. So education is involved. And then a lot of my work also involves, scheduling my flights and hotels if I have to travel in person, right? So the vacation or the paid vacation aspect of it, when I'm actually traveling to a different location, I'll get a heads up like maybe a couple of weeks in advance. Karthik, you need to be here. Then I book all my my travels, hotels, cars, flights, so on and so forth. Just more importantly, everything is about getting ready. Or if you prepped for it and you're already ready, then executing them successfully. So that is what most of my day actually looks like.
Yeah, so you are a busy man. The post-its on your wall certainly account to that.
I try to be, but I actually like, yeah, you never know. I may have just like stuck them up before the meeting, before our call here.
You are Bond.
Like,
you'll never know.
Yeah, or I just wanted it to look like I'm busy, but no, these seriously are the way I remember things. Somebody calls you and you literally like are in a meeting or you are in the middle of something, you don't know what to do. You just like take notes. If there's a phone call, if there's an email you need to send, just type it, stick it on the wall, and then you get back to it later. Yeah. So it's like on the go all the time. Sometimes you need prep, sometimes you don't need prep. Sometimes you have to be like, what is a good word for it? Spontaneous, right? Yeah. So as you can see, being an MSL, you have to be adaptable.
Yeah.
I like what Charu said. It's like being James Bond. You're prepared if something comes up. Plan B.
Yeah, if it's shaken or stirred, you're there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, you interact with scientists, clinicians, sales representatives, I'm sure. You relay new science each day, and you're continually also learning and adding to your own emotional quotient. Do you get time for love, Karthik?
Do I get time for love? What kind of love?
Well, does this job give you a good work-life balance?
It does. It does give a any individual who's an MSL, there is a very good work-life balance. I would say it's actually much better than academia. The reason why, I mean, again, this can actually depend based on what kind of a person you are. I'm a workaholic. I like to work. I like to read. I like to know what is going on. So I put more effort working. I mean, even though even though this is something the company may not have assigned to me, but I want to know. So,
Okay.
I will be like at my computer, maybe like at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or 2 o'clock at night, trying to like read something if there was a new clinical trial, or if there was a new biomarker that looks interesting for a particular tumor type, I might be reading that. Or on other days on the weekend, I might be out there playing cricket. So it just depends. Everybody has a choice to make, and no one, especially within my company, they have all been such amazing people, such an amazing team. They have never told me, to a point where my mentor has repeatedly told me, do not overwork. Just take a break. On the weekends, like Friday after 6 o'clock, I don't want you touching the company's phone. I don't want you answering like any emails unless they are like absolutely emergency. It's an absolute emergency. There's no way around it. Otherwise, do not. Just let go of the weekend, do what you want to do, and then come back on Monday morning. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to be, I'm trying to be that good human being who tries to accomplish all this, but I'm repeatedly disappointing myself at not being able to, and I blame myself for it. So
that's really sound advice for anybody who's really struggling to maintain work-life balance. But I also realize at the same time that you seem to be a very passionate person, very invested in this role. And, just through the day-to-day work, is there anything that you hate about this role that you wish you wouldn't have to do?
Hate about this role. What do I hate about this role? I haven't found anything that I've hated about this role, except for the fact that when I actually go to the site to meet with someone and the commercial team member calls me and says, Karthik, the meeting was canceled. Yeah, I hate that, because I drove, I must have driven like a couple of hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. I must have flown in, and I come to know that the meeting has been canceled, which hasn't happened to me so far, but I've heard of instances where this can happen too. So again, as you know, one of the other really important skills, communication. Communication is key. You communicate with your team members, make sure everybody's on the same page. Make sure you plan your travel accordingly. Again, planning is very important. So, as these questions are really great, because I'm getting to highlight, every single skill that you need. And again, this is something we've all done. If we know that cells need like 3 days to grow, and we haven't like seeded those cells a couple of days in advance, we won't have enough confluence. We cannot treat them. We might have to wait for another day. There you go. I mean, it just like, as I said, you've learned the skill, but you're applying it in a different circumstance or a different situation.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, this is definitely disappointing when things don't go as per plan, but I guess we all need to be spontaneous and like think on our feet all the time.
Exactly. And then one other point I want to add is, if you are really beginning to find things to hate about the MSL role, then you might want to switch careers. Then maybe this is not
well said. Very well said.
I mean, again, the thing is like, it's like, I'm trying to, meet with somebody, maybe like become friends with them, and I like everything about them. Great. If I'm beginning to hate everything about them, then maybe like they're not my friends, or maybe I want to reevaluate things. It's just the same thing. Maybe if your priorities, maybe, who knows, like 10 years down the lane, maybe this is not what I like to do. Maybe I would want to explore some other thing. And at that point in time, if my priorities change, then yes, I would want to consider a different career. But again, because it pays well doesn't mean that you need to do it if you don't like it. Right? So as I said, everybody is built different. We want to do things that we are passionate about, that we really love. Again, you should never get into something for money. Again, neurosurgeons make like $1 million. Doesn't mean I would want to become a neurosurgeon, right? Again, as I said, everybody is built different. The CEO of a company has different responsibilities than, I as an MSL do. So if you are enjoying your job, that is what you want to, work for. That is what you want to expect going forward.
Yeah.
If the job is actually beginning to disappoint you, then maybe you should sit down, take a step, maybe take a vacation, reassess your goals, reassess what your life ambitions are. Maybe they must have changed, maybe they must have not. And then based on that, explore other opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, or unless you're a sadist, and then you can stick to things
Exactly.
you hate.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I
Or you're
really
a
like
sadist or a
your
nihilist.
advice on like don't do it for the money.
Mhm.
And it's not a very easy thing to really do, right? Because it's quite lucrative.
Yeah.
And in academia in general, because of the funding situation or simple economics, you don't
Yep.
get paid the same way that people in industry do, but your passion can be completely different and it's okay to follow it.
Exactly.
And some people are, you just have to be happy, right? If you're not happy,
Exactly.
if you're suffering, there's no point.
Yeah.
So you've already given us a wealth of advice, but I want to ask you if there's one takeaway that you would like to give to anybody who wants to make it as an MSL.
Mhm. Yeah. Uh, when I started looking for an MSL position, as I said, I've talked with a lot of MSLs in different phases of their MSL career. Some have just transitioned, maybe some have transitioned an year ago, some are already like directors, some are like regional medical advisors. And they've all told me one thing: it's very difficult to get in, but it's not impossible. Right. So the idea is that whatever you do, you put your 100%. And whatever role this may be, it is not just an MSL role. And I do not want to go and give you a list of things to do, like, hey Charu or hey Ayantika, these are the things that you definitely need. I'm not going to say that.
Okay.
What I want to say is, if you want to become an MSL, you will find ways and means to become an MSL. That is it. If you're passionate about it, you will research the role, you will talk to the right people, you will do the right thing. Right. If your mind is not invested in becoming an MSL, maybe you'll get distracted, maybe you'll get disappointed. Again, when I was applying to this MSL position, I applied for 120 jobs on LinkedIn. I only got 2 interviews. Right. So that is what the success rate looks like. But again, one of them worked out for me and I'm here. Right. So it's very, very, very difficult, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
And having said that, there is no list of things for any job, is what I believe. Any job can be accomplished as long as you love the work, you love the responsibilities that come with it, and you're a human being, a decent human being, responsible enough to take up or own up those duties.
Wow, Karthik, this was splendid. I mean, an intimate conversation about an alternate career is extremely rare. Sometimes people feel like they have to hide it, or like, they want to make it look very glorious. And you've just been so honest and open and inspiring. And I think many people will want to explore the MSL role, and in the right way, and not as just a money making machine.
Absolutely. And then when somebody's reaching out to people, again, as I said, the most important aspect of being an MSL is having that emotional quotient. Right. You will meet with people who are really willing to help you. You meet with people who are absolutely not willing to help you. So you will meet people in all flavors, right? So you have to know that not everybody out there is watching your back or is out there to help and support you. If you encounter resistance, choose a different path. Talk to some other people. Again, not everybody is going to be resistant to your efforts, so it will take some time to break into break somebody's walls, because everybody wants to be cautious. And most of the people who reach out to you, they reach out with, hey, can you refer me to this job that your company has just posted? Do not do that. Do not do that. I cannot emphasize the fact that if you approach somebody this way, you're immediately killing your chances of getting into a company that's your dream company, or becoming an MSL. Never reach out. And this is not just about being an MSL, it's about any job. When you're actually reaching out to someone, do not reach out for referrals. Reach out to know that person. Reach out to know why they are here. Why did they make that choice of being here? Why did they become an MSL and not an R&D scientist? And what do they like about it? You get to know them, right? Once you have that human connection, again, we are not androids, or we are not like robots or AIs that are actually doing the job. We are human beings, right? So I will only be comfortable if I know someone, if I know that that person I'm referring is actually going to do well. And if I don't feel that confidence, maybe I'll work with that candidate. This candidate can be my friend or someone I know or someone I'm mentoring. I'll provide them with resources, and only when they're confident about themselves will I actually refer them. But again, LinkedIn is a really powerful tool, right? It's the platform which opens up connections. Use it very wisely. Do not misuse it, or do not abuse it. Just because a profile is available doesn't mean they'll be open to referring you. Again, nobody wants to refer anyone for a job unless you know them. Just like, you want to get some things done at your home, you want to paint walls. You don't want to hire someone who you don't know. You'll ask for recommendations like, hey, who do you think is going to do a good job? Right. Just like that. It's just exactly the same thing. You think like a hiring manager. Once you're on this side of transitioning, right? You're actually aspiring to become an MSL. For a minute, stop thinking like an MSL. Think like a hiring manager. Why should I hire this individual? And if I were to interview myself, would I hire myself? If your answer is yes, good to go. If your answer is no, then you need something to work on.
Right. That's really good advice, Karthik. When you have an informational interview, it definitely makes sense to know each other. And that way, even as a candidate, you get to know more about the position when you try to know the person. That was really great advice. And we thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure Charu will also agree with me on this. We had a wonderful conversation. Totally enjoyed it, and completely appreciate your time and willingness to talk to us. Absolutely. So since this is a recorded event, I'm sure the listeners will have a lot of questions. And is it okay if they contact you?
I was just about to say that. Anytime, guys. Charu and Ayantika, you both have my contact information. I'm also on LinkedIn, so just hit me up. We can sit down, we can chat. If there are any particular questions that are pressing or that are bothering you, or maybe we might not have covered here, we can talk about it in detail. Just as I said, just get to know me, and give me a chance to get to know you too. And then maybe if something works up, I might
refer you.
Let me not say that. Let me say I will put in a good word. I'll be more. So I'll put in a good word. I'll say yes, I know someone. It's all about, guys, in academia or in pharma. It's all about building relationships. You will work for a company, and 2 years later you will not. You'll work for a different company, but what's going to stay is that relationship you've built with that human being. So always just feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. More than happy to chat with you.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
And Charu and Ayantika, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. This was amazing. I hope you guys invite individuals from alternative careers like this and talk about their career trajectory, why they are here, and things like that. But really, thank you to you guys and to Biopatrika for taking this amazing initiative of bringing in people and talking about their careers, letting people know what different careers are available, just not engineers and doctors and lawyers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you,
building upon that, we have podcasts with that you can listen to. And also, just as a reminder for our audience, we have science illustrators, we have journalists, we have people who've moved into the industry but in a sales sort of an attitude. We will very soon be talking to a person who has a PhD, who did multiple postdocs, and then is now a recruiter. So now that's also an alternative career. So thank you so much. And we'll have Karthik's LinkedIn information linked with the podcast for all our listeners. Karthik, please share your feedback with us. And also for all our listeners, please email us on biopatrika.in@gmail.com. And now we take your leave and hope you will tune in again for our next interview soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.